Welcome back for another book review. Today we are talking about this one. So this is an Illuminated Guide to Wicca, a complete visual manual by Helena Domenic, something like that. This book. This is one from the library, and honestly this is one that I would go out and buy. Spoiler alert. Now, I will say there are a couple things that I don't like about this book, but overall, it's a pretty good read. So the main thing that I really loved about this book is that while it is like your run-of-the-mill, like, beginner witchcraft Wicca book, there's nothing like revolutionary in the topics covered. And again, I constantly compare these books, but like, so many of these beginner books, it's such an intro, like, little thing. And it's not really much of like a guide for a beginner. So like if you are looking for like a year and a day style book or like something to actually like really get you going, it's not that. Again, for that kind of style where you're wanting to like really get to know things and get started, there's better books. Inner Temple of Witchcraft, good place to start. But if you want just like a brief overview of some stuff of Wicca, this is a really good resource. It is a little bit more inclusive of like current topics in our modern day. For example, she has a lot on cultural appropriation and also the unique situation that Americans are in, where you're kind of torn between cultural appropriation but also heritage and how all of that comes into play. She covers the topic pretty well in this book. She also has a wonderful history of Wicca in here. And for once, we don't have the rose-colored look on the past, which is awesome. She only really focuses on our modern history, which honestly, I feel like more books need to be doing. I don't know why we are so caught up, and maybe it's because the older books didn't have that much history to go off of where we do now, but we're getting close to 100 years of Wicca, where it came out, I think Gardner was initiated in like the 30s. That was almost 100 years ago. That's really getting close now. The 20s to the 30s, like, we're almost there. It's 2023, you know, like, it's getting close. And so, like, she, in this book, talks about the modern history. Gardner, Alexandrian Wicca, Doreen Valiente, like, we have a lot of the founding people, and we don't have to go over the witch trials and how they might have practiced folk magic, but like they also didn't consider themselves Wiccan and witches. And like the people accused actually probably didn't practice witchcraft. They were the social outcasts and like pissed off the wrong person and then they got killed for it. And like the even better, like the Marion, I think wasn't it Weinstein from Positive Magic, where she was quoting the one researcher person who like really put some bias on historical facts. This book doesn't do that. She doesn't talk about how there's a possible theory of like a matriarchal society of the past. Like, instead we're focusing on our actual history that we know in the past 100 years. Do I wish she would have gone a little bit more into detail? Yes. She really skimmed, like, you can tell her bias, to say the least. She is definitely pro like kind of traditional Wicca in that sense, in having a coven and, you know, being in the group work thing and like little changes here and there. But for the most part, it's pretty traditional Wicca in a lot of ways. Again, in a modern sense, like you're not, like consent and like what you're comfortable with is a huge part of this book. But she does say that like she's really big into coven work. So like the history didn't have a lot of like the solitary people, like Scott Cunningham, Silver Ravenwolf, the big title of like those two who really made a lot of effort and like waves in the community. Not a whole lot mentioned for them. But again, for like the history of witchcraft, I was really surprised to read that and be like, wow, this is actually like good. It's new. This is different. This is not what we normally have for the history. I like this. This is what we should be talking about. While the history is interesting of the past, it's so biased. Like, we don't know anymore because it's so hard to say how much of it's been changed. It wasn't written down by the people. It wasn't written down by people who cared about it. They were going to change it. Like, that's the problem. Christians, especially in the past, were going to change the context of things to fit their narrative. Hence, Valhalla is heaven and Hell's realm is closer to hell, when in reality that isn't true. Hell is a whole thing, like her realm is a whole deal. But like, let alone other cultures as well, there's been a lot of bias, and like Norse and Celtic in particular, like there's a lot of like the Christian influence on it. So it's nice to have the history actually be our history in modern times. And again, the rest of the book is pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. I don't know why it says that it's a complete visual manual. I didn't feel like it was. Like, that's pretty standard text for a lot of the pages. There are like little bits of artwork here and there, but that's in a majority of books anyways. And like a lot of books do have, like, especially more recent books, tend to have a lot more artsy-fartsy stuffs. And like, don't get me wrong, her artwork is gorgeous. She is the artist and author, so she did both, which is awesome. She does have some great skill, and I do appreciate how the pages feel like they're older. Because again, like, I don't know if you can tell, it's a slightly different fade to the pages, and like, it does have a little bit of a vibe sometimes of like we have like this little doodado, like just little fancy stiffs. Like, it was interesting, but again, most of the overall content is what you're gonna find in every book. Nothing really different, other than, again, like the history, that was different. But I don't see how it's a complete visual manual. That just kind of felt weird, because again, most of the books are going to have pictures, especially modernly, so that was a little strange. I don't know how it's a complete visual manual. That felt a little odd. The other thing I didn't like about this book, and it was the main reason I dropped my review from a 5 to a 4, was because this book does not have a conclusion. When books don't have a conclusion of any kind, it's an irksome thing for me. It's one of just those things that it's like, but why? Why can't you be bothered to write even just a paragraph? But no, instead you're just like tootling along in your book, and then suddenly we're at the bibliography and you're like, well, okay, give me some whiplash. So I wish there had been some type of conclusion, because it just is such a sharp end to the book. I wish there had just been a little, just wrap it up. Nice little package at the end. But we don't have that. So again, overall, this is a book that I will probably go out and purchase at some point. It is a great resource. I would recommend it if you are a beginner, just to get some of the information. Is this the end-all book? No. Definitely you want to read more. But as you're beginning and you're starting to read some of the beginner books, it's interesting to see different perspectives, and this is a great one. So anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts on this book in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillacrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.